Hi folks, Mr. Whipple here. We're going to be using class notes and example sheet for section 2.2. It also has a little bit of 2.5 to organize our thoughts around the short run behavior of polynomial functions, like you're seeing here in the title, and then stepping up just a little bit in the sophistication of the problem you're doing, where you'll be given a graph and be asked to come up with a formula for that graph. All right, let's get started. So I've gone ahead and marked where the zeros are on the function we're trying to get a formula for here. We know that one's at -2, 1, and 4, so I've got those there. And then because we know that the y-intercept is -16, we know that this polynomial has to come down right through -2 and then hit the -16, go back up, and then come back down through the 4. All right, so I'm going to sketch that real quickly, and then we'll take a look at what the formula might be. Okay, so if you can ignore the waviness of my graph, this is pretty much what it would look like. And you know, I just waited and added the -16 once I saw where my graph was crossing the y-axis. That's a good way to do it sometimes. Okay, so since we have zeros, it certainly makes sense to use what we're going to call factored form of the polynomial to write the equation. So tell you what, I think I have enough room over here. So we can just go ahead and say, so it's y equals, and then of course wherever we have a 0, we know that we're going to have a factor of x minus whatever that 0 is. So I have x minus -2, right, and times x minus 1, and then we also have x minus 4. And we might think this is good enough for our final answer, but as we look at it, we also need to have this y-intercept over here of -16. So that means, you know, that we have the point 0, -16. That must be that our formula must give us that. So if we were to plug 0 in for x, would we end up getting -16 back? Okay, now we'd have 0 plus 2, so that'd be a 2, and then 0 minus 1, so that'd be a -1, and then 0 minus 4. So let's see, I'll write this out. So let's see, I rewrote my formula with changing that x minus -2 to x plus 2. And when we plug 0 in, we can see we don't actually get -16. In fact, we get +8. So we don't quite have, you know, the correct formula. We have a function that is going up through the -2, intersecting the y-axis at +8, coming back down through the 1, and then coming back up through the 4. That's what our polynomial looks like. So what can we do to end up with a formula that would give us our blue graph, right? And so, you know, we don't want to introduce any more of these factors because we only have the 3 zeros. So one thing that we're overlooking is the fact that there could be some constant number multiplying our polynomial. Here, let me change a color here. So I'll use black here. So there could be, I tend to use the letter K, there could be a K in front of all these, okay? I'll put it right here. So it could be a K times. So what would we want K to be so that instead of ending up with 8 when we plug in 0, we end up with -16? Right, so hopefully you're thinking, yeah, what if we let K equal -2, right? So that our formula looks like the following. So we can see that this would be a formula that would satisfy all the conditions we have up there, right? We'll have our 0 at -2, +1, +4, and now when we plug 0 in, we will get back -16. All right, now you might have noticed though that I'm challenging you to find a second formula that meets all these criteria, but it's different from the first one. And just to give you a little hint, it has something to do with the factors, that it is possible to still have 3 zeros, but to maybe have a higher degree polynomial. Right now we have a cubic, right? This is a cubic polynomial that's has long run behavior like negative x cubed. But it is possible to have like a 4th degree polynomial that then meets this criteria. So, and so it has something to do with when we were talking about, I think you guys have done some work with having double zeros. If you can make one of these have a double zero, it is possible to get another formula that meets these criteria. So why don't you pause the video and give that a try. Now there are other ways to do this, but I just kind of playing around with the graph. What if I came up and just touched, right? Just kind of kiss the x-axis at -2, come back down, then come back up through, and do it this way. What would that formula look like? Well, let's see. We'd still have the same 3 factors, but as we've learned before, right, this one would have to be a double zero. So let's write it that way. So now we have the x plus 2 squared with the other 2 factors, and I went ahead and put a k in there. We may need to figure out, what value does k need to be to get this to work. So let's see. Oh yeah, we need this to still go through -16, so let me mark that. This is -16. And now if we plug 0 in, are we going to get back -16? So you can see that when I plug 0 in on the right-hand side, I don't get -16. You can see I'm going to get 2 squared, which is 4, times -1 times -4. I get +16. All right, so I need it to equal -16. So you can kind of see how I've set this up like an equation, algebraic equation. We're just going to solve for k, and all we have left to do is divide by 16 on both sides, and we get k is equal to -1. So our final answer is right here, as we have it there. All right, and that's just one of a number of different things we could have done. We could have done something like this with the red graph, come through the -2 like we did before, come back up, hit the -16, and then done a double zero at 1, okay? And that would have yielded a different formula. Or another possibility would, kind of be, I'll do this in neon green, come down, come back up, and then do a double zero at 4, okay? So all of those would yield a different formula, and we could go through the same process to figure out what the k value would be for that. All right, so let's just summarize some of the ideas we've been using. First off, if a polynomial p has a 0 at x equal to q, then one of its linear factors must, of course, be x minus q. Okay, and conversely, if x minus q is a factor of p, then x equal to q, right, is a 0 of p, right? And of course the word 0 means that when you plug that number into the formula, you get back 0. So this also means that q comma 0 is an x-intercept of the graph of p of x, and that x equal to q is a solution to the equation p of x equals 0. So all of these things are referring kind of to the same phenomenon. And then this form of writing a polynomial equation where we have some constant times all of our linear factors, where these z numbers are the zeros of the polynomial. This is what we call factored form, okay, factored form, and it is the most useful form to use when you're dealing with zeros, basically x-intercepts. So now, seeing what we've done so far in this video and in past exercises we've done, see if you can figure out what the formula would be for this polynomial. Use factored form. don't forget about the k value, okay? And you do want to make sure that your, while your polynomial has these zeros, okay, by the way, the x-axis is going up by 1 unit each time, make sure your polynomial also has this point, 1, 5 in it. Pause your video and give that a try. All right, see if this is what you got. Maybe you got this far but weren't sure what to do from here. This is where this point 1, 5 comes into play, right? You do know that if you plug 1 in for x, you should get back 5 for y. So give that a try and finish seeing if you can figure out what k is. All right, here's what I got. Forgot to point out earlier, but make sure you have a square on that x minus 3 factor, right? Because it's just coming in and kissing it, but not going all the way through. And once we plug in our 1 and our 5, we're going to end up with 40k times 5, right? Because this ends up being 4, not negative 2. We got negative 2 squared, which is positive 4. And so we end up with 1/8 for k. And there is a formula that fits all the information we have on this graph. I believe I was mentioning on one of the videos with the Desmos application, I was kind of showing you that you can think of repeated or multiple zeros as being zeros that kind of merge. So you got 2 zeros way out here, and as they come closer and closer together, then they kind of form into 1 0. But that, of course, ends up looking like this in the equation, right? Like this on the factor. The same kind of thing can happen with 3 zeros. You can have 1, 2, 3, but if they come together, you can kind of see them merging. Then you're going to end up with your final, when they finally do merge, it's going to basically just go right through that one point. But you do have the hitch, kind of like you're used to with x cubed. So you can kind of see it's concave down right here, but then it changes to concave up. That's what will happen when you have an odd number of zeros come together and form what we would call a triple zero, right? We got a double zero here, we got a triple zero here. I think for the most part we'll stick to just double zeros, but I did want to cover the odd ones as well. So just to summarize, when we have an even number 0, because this can happen if you have 4 zeros coming together, or 6, you would just end up with a factor of like x minus c to the 4th power or something like that. But anyway, we have these two things, 2 examples. The graph touches the x-axis but does not cross it. And then the factor, of course, would be an even exponent right there. And here's what the odd triple zeros or odd powered zeros would look like, right? They'll change concavity as they cross through. And they do cross the x-axis, and you would have some kind of an odd exponent. Typically, if you see that, you just assume it's a cube. All right. The last relationship we're going to look at is just how many turning points or curves can a polynomial have given its degree. So if you had a degree 4 polynomial, 4th degree, what is the most number of curves or turning points that it could have? So let's just maybe start out with degree 1, 2, and 3 and kind of see a pattern there. Okay, of course, degree 1 has to cross, will cross the x-axis at one location, so it has 1, 0, and therefore it actually has no curves, right, because it's linear. Whereas if we have degree 2, we could have 2 zeros, right? To get 2 zeros, we're just going to have 1 curve, right? Degree 3, we can have 3 zeros, and in order to get 3 zeros, you can see we have like 2 turning points, right? That's this is what they're talking about with a turning point right there, where it turns back down and then curves back up. So that would be a 2. So what is the most number of curves at turning points that a 4th degree can have? Hopefully you said 3, right? Because if it can have 4 zeros, that means it can turn 3 times, once and twice and then 3 times. And of course, do we even need to draw the last one? The pattern is very clear, right? Every time you had a 0, you're going to have to have another curve. So there's always appears to be one fewer curve than the number of zeros that we can possibly have. So the graph of an nth degree polynomial has at most, right, n zeros. Whoops, I misspelled zeros. Shouldn't be an e there. And turns at most n minus 1 times. Okay. Now this phrase at most is kind of important to make sure we understand. All right. A fourth degree polynomial does not have to have 3 curves, right? Take a basic one like y equals x to the fourth. Y equals x to the fourth only has 1 curve, right? It looks a lot like y equals x squared. Same thing with y equals x to the 6 or so forth. So it's possible for some of these higher degree polynomials to mimic a lower degree. So like a fourth can mimic a squared, a sixth can mimic a fourth or a squared, and so forth. And the same is true about your odd ones, right? If I draw something that looks like this, you might say it's a cubic polynomial like y equals x cubed, but it could also be y equals x to the fifth. Okay, so the fifth can mimic the third, and the seventh can mimic the fifth, and so forth. So that's why we're using that wording of at most. All right, for the last example, we're going to turn things around and give you a formula and ask you to graph it. You can see it. It looks like it's in factored form, but we have that x squared minus 25. That looks a little different, right? That's not like x minus 25 is x squared. So think about what you can do with that. I'm giving you a hint that perhaps it still needs some more factoring here, right? You're done, to make sure you're done with your graph, make sure that all your x and y intercepts are labeled. All right, pause the video, give that a try, and then you can check it with what I've done. Thank you for doing that. Is this what you got? Okay, so let's take a look at this. This polynomial right here is not fully factored, right? We have a difference of squares binomial that we can split into x times x, and then we have negative 5 times positive 5, and of course the middle terms would cancel. So there we go. Now we have the full factors. So we have 3 zeros, one at negative 5, one at 4, and one at positive 5. And then before we sketch the curve, we should figure out the y-intercept. Now I didn't write that out, but it basically came down to 0 minus 4, so negative 4 times 0 minus 5, negative 5. Now that would be negative 4 times negative 5 is 20, and then times 5, which is 100, and then times another 5, which would be 500. So I just kind of did that in my head. I'm going to mark that. I'm not worried about the scale at all. My y scale can be completely different from my x scale. Okay, and then once we have that, we can actually sketch the curve and see that it's going to come up and hit that point and come back down and go through. We did not have any double zeros or double roots, so everything's going to cross the x-axis. Okay, one final check on our graph would be to look at the long run behavior. If we were to multiply all these terms out or all these terms out, our leading term would be 5 times x times x times x, or 5x cubed. That'd be the highest degree term we would have. And we just want to make sure that our graph basically behaves like 5x cubed would, and we know that 5x cubed would basically look like this, right? So I think we're good. It would be rising as x approaches infinity. We'd be going up, be rising up, and as x approaches negative infinity, we would be going down. So I think our graph is well done. All right, that should give you plenty of tools to be able to do the problems from the worksheet, where you're going to be given some graphs and come up with a formula in factored form for the most part.